Let's do a little experiment. If you have 26 sheep and one of them dies, how many do you have left? 25. Wrong. It's 19. Let me say it again. If you have 20 sick sheep, how many do you have left? Now, what the heck is the relationship to leadership here? If leadership is about self-determination, then the fact that you and I may not be communicating, we may be hearing through a filter. You may be actually hearing right now what I'm speaking through a filter. We heard this morning about Africa. I assert that when I say African leader, that we tend to think of Idi Amin. When I say Bill Clinton, we tend to think of Monica Lewinsky. So there is something about a filter that is going on, and you cannot not have the filter. If you're a human being like me, you're going to have a filter through which you hear everything that's being said. Now, the relationship to leadership is, if leadership is about self-determination, if leadership is about bringing forth a future, a possibility, as we've just seen, that does not exist yet, then it becomes extremely important, how do you listen? What is the filter through which you can actually see the world? Now, leaders are creating the future, but what we, if we look at the theories of leadership that are basically that have the dominance, or if we look at the books on leadership, and last time I went to Amazon, there were over 70,000 books on leadership, including my own. And my assertion is that those theory and those books do not necessarily give access to leadership. They might explain leadership, they might describe leadership, but they don't actually provide access to what it is to be a leader. Now, what gives access to that? And I would assert that if you look at these leaders here, people like Winston Churchill or people like Mahatma Gandhi, those were people who generated through language a possibility that was bigger than themselves, that did literally not exist before they spoke. When John F. Kennedy said it should be possible to bring a man to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, he created literally, by that declaration, a possibility that did not exist. Gandhi, the same thing with the independence of India. Winston Churchill, the vanquishing of the Nazis. Now, if that is possible, and I'm not saying it's true, by the way. This is an empowering, what I would call an empowering lie or an empowering interpretation, that what if all life was a set of conversations? What if these TED Talks are basically conversations that generate something that does not exist, that give rise to a reality that literally doesn't exist yet? And that's what leadership might be. I'm not saying it's true. You know, maybe leadership is some mysterious quality, like some trait or some charisma or some way of walking down the factory floor in a kind of an overbearing manner. But if leadership might be a function of language, then it becomes extremely important how you speak and how you listen. Now, unfortunately...
Have you ever spent like 5 minutes with him? He's totally self-centered. They just don't go together. I mean, she's my best friend. She has these emotional needs you can't meet. Remember what she went through with Brad? She's like awful. And now he's the one acting needy.
He's at the 50. He's at the 40. He's going to go all the way. Shots at breaking loose. The rookie's on fire. Wow, this kid's having a huge half. It's just incredible.
You're such a great listener.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, I was speaking to a CEO a few years ago about the importance of two-way communication. And he grew kind of adamant with me. He said, of course I do two-way communication. I write to my people and I talk to my people. And that's basically his understanding of two-way communication. And he basically didn't understand that there might be, in addition to the communicating down or out in the organization. There might also be a listening up, that unless you listen for the best practices or the intelligence from the frontline people, you will not get the intelligence. You know, if you picture a 7-level hierarchy for a moment, and you picture that each level reports 50% to the next level, 7 levels, how much does the CEO know, or the president? Okay, no mathematicians, only visionaries here. 1.6%. So if you base, as a CEO on the board of directors, if you base your decisions, your strategy on those 1.6%, you can only hope and pray, please let it be the right 1.6% and not the wrong 98.4%. So there's a crucial importance to listening, and unfortunately we don't do it very well. You know, there's debating clubs, there's no listening clubs, there are TED Talks, there's not TED Listenings, which might be an innovation, if I have my way. There are, you know, we don't learn listening in school. There are no listening Oscars. There are no listening Nobel Prizes. And yet, perhaps listening is the most important, the most crucial skill set in terms of leadership. Now, you might be ignoring, like the man in the video, right, who's completely passing out, 50-yard line. You might be pretending, the second layer, where you listen for, you pretend to listen, but you're not actually there, and you're playing with your BlackBerry or your laptop or your iPad, etc. Thank you. You might be projecting, as we've seen, you're projecting onto Africa a certain set of prejudices. You might be controlling, which is what Tim was trying to do before the lunch break, to try to squeeze, you know, how much more can we listen to? Can we actually reduce that speaking by body language or by mimicry or by looking at your watch? When is he done? Etc. And then we get to the positive, respecting, where you listen one-to-one, or empathizing, where you listen for the intention of the person, or generating, where you listen for the leadership or for the brilliance of the person. Now, you don't need to remember all this, but there are basically more dimensions of listening available. It's not just the light switch. It is something that you could develop a repertoire in, and the highest level would be mastery, which is what Martin Luther King did when he had his speech, I Have a Dream. And I assert to you that it's not just what he said, but the way he was listening to the listening while he was speaking that gave rise to the innermost desires of those 200,000 people at the Washington Monument. And that created a transcendent speech that gave rise to the Civil Rights Movement and the changes. So, when you leave this talk, or as you continue to listen to different people giving talks, I would just recommend that you look at, how do I listen? What's my filter? What are my 26 sheep through which I'm hearing? And I think already I know what the person is saying, but we don't really listen to now, we listen to the past. And so my invitation to you is, listen for the gold, listen 1 minute longer than is comfortable for you. Sometimes the solution opens up right there. And experiment with listening. Perhaps listening is the most low-cost, highest leverage investment in the leadership of your people and your own leadership. Thank you so much.